At 6 o'clock supper, the Swede fizzed like a firewheel. He sometimes seemed on the point of bursting into riotous song, and in all his madness he was encouraged by old Skelly. The Easterner was encased in reserve. The cowboy sat with wide-mouthed amazement, forgetting to eat, while Johnny wrathfully demolished great plates of food. The daughters of the house, when they were obliged to replenish the biscuits, approached as warily as Indians, and, having succeeded in their purpose, fled with ill-concealed trepidation. The Swede domineered the whole feast, and it gave it the appearance of a cruel bacchanal. He seemed to have grown suddenly taller. He gazed, brutally disdainful, into every face. His voice rang through the room. Once, when he jabbed out harpoon fashion with his fork to pinion a biscuit, the weapon nearly impaled the hand of the Easterner, which had been stretched quietly out for the same biscuit. After supper, as the men filed towards the other room, the Swede smote Skelly ruthlessly on the shoulder. "Well, old boy, that was a good square meal." Johnny looked hopefully at his father. He knew that shoulder was tender from an old fall, and indeed, it appeared for a moment as if Skelly was going to flame out over the matter. But in the end he smiled a sickly smile and remained silent. The others understood from his manner that he was admiring his responsibility for the Swede's new viewpoint. Johnny, however, addressed his parent in an aside. "Why don't you license somebody to kick you downstairs?" Skelly scowled darkly by way of reply. When they were gathered about the stove, the Swede insisted on another game of high-five. Skelly gently depreciated the plan at first, but the Swede turned a wolfish glare upon him. The old man subsided, and the Swede canvassed the others. In his tone there was always a great threat. The cowboy and the Easterner both remarked indifferently that they would play. Skelly said that he would presently have to go meet the 6:58 train, and so the Swede turned menacingly upon Johnny. For a moment, their glances crossed like blades. And then Johnny smiled and said, "Yes, I'll play." They formed a square, with the little board on their knees. The Easterner and the Swede were again partners. As the play went on, it was noticeable that the cowboy was not board-whacking as usual. Meanwhile, Skelly, near the lamp, had put out his spectacles, and, with an appearance curiously like an old priest, was reading a newspaper. In time he went out to meet the 6:58 train, and, despite his precautions, a gust of polar wind whirled into the room as he opened the door. Besides scattering the cards, it chilled the players to the marrow. The Swede cursed frightfully. When Skelly returned, his entrance disturbed a cozy and friendly scene. The Swede again cursed, but presently they were once more intent, their heads bent forward and their hands moving swiftly. The Swede had adopted the fashion of board-whacking. Skelly took up his paper and for a long time remained immersed in matters which were extraordinarily remote from him. The lamp burned badly, and once he stopped to adjust the wick. The newspaper, as he turned from page to page, rustled with a slow and comfortable sound. Then suddenly he heard 3 terrible words. "You were cheating!" Such scenes often prove that there can be little of dramatic import in environment. Any room can present a tragic front. Any room can be comic. This little den was now hideous as a torture chamber. The new faces of the men themselves had changed it upon the instant. The Swede held a huge fist in front of Johnny's face, while the latter looked steadily over it into the blazing orbs of his accuser. The Easterner had grown pallid. The cowboy's jaw had dropped in that expression of bovine amazement, which was one of his important mannerisms. After the 3 words, the first sound in the room was made by Scully's paper as it floated forgotten to his feet. His spectacles had also fallen from his nose, but by a clutch he had saved them, in the air. His hand, grasping the spectacles, now remained poised awkwardly and near his shoulder. He stared at the card players. Probably the silence was while a second elapsed. Then, if the floor had been suddenly twitched out from under the men, they could not have moved quicker. The 5 had projected themselves headlong toward a common point. It happened that Johnny, in rising to hurl himself upon the Swede, had stumbled slightly because of his curiously instinctive care for the cards and the board. The loss of the movement allowed time for the arrival of Scully, and also allowed the cowboy time to give the Swede a great push, which sent him staggering back. The men found tongue together, and hoarse shouts of rage, appeal, or fear burst from every throat. The cowboy pushed and jostled feverishly at the Swede, and the Easterner and Scully clung wildly to Johnny. But, through the smoky air, above the swaying bodies of the peace compellers, the eyes of the 2 warriors ever sought each other in glances of challenge that were at once hot and steely. Of course, the board had been overturned, and now the whole company of cards was scattered over the floor, where the boots of the men trampled the fat and painted kings and queens as they gazed with their silly eyes at the war that was raging above them. Scully's voice was dominating the yells. "Stop now! Stop, I say! Stop now!" Johnny, as he struggled to burst through the rank formed by Scully and the Easterner, was crying, "Well, he says I cheated. He says I cheated. I won't allow no man to say I cheated. If he says I cheated, he's a..." The cowboy was telling the Swede, "Quit now, quit. Do you hear?" The screams of the Swede never ceased. "He did cheat. I saw him. I saw him." As for the Easterner, he was importuning in a voice that was not heeded. "Wait a moment, can't you? Oh, wait a moment. What's the good of a fight over a game of cards? Wait a moment." In this tumult, no complete sentences were clear. "Cheat. Quit. He says," these fragments pierced the uproar and rang out sharply. It was remarkable that, whereas Scully undoubtedly made the most noise, he was the least heard of any of the riotous band. Then suddenly there was a great cessation. It was as if each man had paused for breath, and although the room was still lighted with the anger of men, it could be seen that there was no danger of immediate conflict. And at once, Johnny, shouldering his way forward, almost succeeded in confronting the Swede. "What do you say I cheated for? What do you say I cheated for? I don't cheat, and I won't let no man say I do." The Swede said, "I saw you. I saw you." "Well," cried Johnny, "I'll fight any man what says I cheat." "No, you won't," said the cowboy. "Not here." "Ah, be still, can't you?" said Scully, coming between them. The quiet was sufficient to allow the Easterner's voice to be heard. He was repeating, "Oh, wait a moment, can't you? What's the good of a fight over a game of cards? Wait a moment." Johnny, his face red, appearing above his father's shoulder, hailed the Swede again. "Did you say I cheated?" The Swede showed his teeth. Yes. Then, said Johnny, we must fight. Yes, fight! Roared the Swede. He was like a demoniac. Yes, fight! I'll show you what kind of man I am. I'll show you who you want to fight. Maybe you think I can't fight. Maybe you think I can't. I'll show you. You skin, you card sharp. Yeah, you cheated. You cheated. You cheated. Well, let's go at it then, mister, said Johnny coolly. The cowboy's brow was beaded with sweat from his efforts in intercepting all sorts of raids. He turned in despair to Scully. What are you going to do now? A change had come over the Celtic visage of the old man. He now seemed all eagerness. His eyes glowed. We'll let him fight, he answered stalwartly. I can't put up with it any longer. I've stood this damn Swede till I'm sick. We'll let him fight.